What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Toma Todito Boxing Show. Hopefully, becoming your favorite podcast, your favorite boxing go-to, or at least one of them. I would be honored if that's the case. And I took a few days off, and we're back at it. And of course, how could we not cover the fight that took place less than 24 hours ago, which was the big showdown between Devin, Haney, and Ryan Garcia. This fight needs an episode like the one that I'm going to put together for you today. We need to talk about everything because a lead-up show and then a pre-show would not do it justice. It would just be nothing but hype and speculation. But now that we have everything completed up to this chapter, everything has come and gone. And it still left us, not only did the fight deliver, but it still left us plenty to talk about and plenty to speculate going forward in this 140-pound division, where both of these fighters may very well continue to campaign at this division, or more than likely, after comments made in the post-fight last night, more than likely, we will have new arrivals to the welterweight division. A lot to talk about, and of course, how could we miss this? You know, and last year when I was on and off with the episodes and long breaks and so forth, there were many big fights that I didn't get to get on here behind the mic and talk to you about, whether they were by way of previews or recap episodes. Such fights like the Ryan Garcia Tank Davis or like a Crawford Spence. I never got on here to cover those, and those were some of the big fights, and it was an exciting 2023 altogether. 2024 has turned out to be so far much better and a much better pace than what 2023 left us with. 23, in my opinion, was one of the best boxing years of recent memory, maybe dating back to 2007, and you guys have heard me mention that in other episodes, where 2007 was a jam-packed year with boxing, some of the best boxing fights that occurred, and 23 was similar to that. It brought me back to memories of 2007. Some of the biggest fights took place, and of course, the biggest of them, in my opinion, was Crawford Spence, which became kind of like the 07 counterpart to De La Hoya Mayweather, which took place that year. It was a fight that everybody wanted. Everybody was clamoring for. The stars came out to see it. It just had the attention. It grabbed the attention of the world. Well, 24 is no exception because 24 has picked up where 23 left off with the sport of boxing and has taken off in such an amazing route that there's plenty of boxing to come for us, and high elite level boxing at that. The big heavyweight unification bout coming up with Fury and Usyk. We got George Kambosos and Lomachenko in a showdown out in Australia also in May. We got Navarrete challenging up at 135, announcing his arrival to 135 and fighting Denis Berinchik for that WBO title. Oscar Valdez just recently secured an interim title at 130, which that's a stacked 130 division. Naoya Inoue and Neri getting into a showdown a day after the Canelo fight. Canelo Munguia taking place. And then this fight, Haney Garcia, we got Tank and Frank Martin coming up. David Benavidez moving up to 175. So there's a lot to look forward to and a lot that we've covered to date. A lot of fights that we've covered to date in such a short span of this year, the first quarter of this year. Let's talk about this card first of all, because the entire event itself we'll cover here, will encompass and bring it all full circle. But let's talk about this big event that took place yesterday, because there was plenty of fights yesterday. There was, let me take a quick count here of how many fights they actually had on this card. They had 11 fights on this card scheduled yesterday, and all of them were basically up-and-coming prospects and some prospects starting to slide into the contender slots. Super middleweights for the super middleweight division in full-fledged on this undercard. And then there was a good mix-up of different weights and different divisions. We'll talk about the lower divisions. And that was Scrappy Ramirez, who has sparred and been in camp with Regis Prograis, who we saw in the ring celebrating with Zurdo Ramirez when he beat Gulamarian for the cruiserweight title. Not that long ago, Scrappy was right there next to Zurdo. Zurdo was actually ringside supporting Scrappy Ramirez. When he fought David Jimenez, a Costa Rican fighter, actually took the fight to Scrappy Ramirez and got the unanimous decision win over him. This is a 115-pound fight. It was for the WBA interim title for that division. Scrappy Ramirez had a lot of hype behind him and a lot of notoriety. Definitely a big following already, and other boxers that really appreciate and like him. Very likable character, very likable guy. But he came up short on this one. He got beat to the punch, and he got beat basically throughout the fight. David Jimenez, a Costa Rican fighter, ends up improving to 16-1, whereas Scrappy gets the first loss of his career, drops to 13-1, and comes short of getting his hands around that interim title for that division. Charles Conwell, another fighter who is also starting to cement himself as a top dog at 154 pounds. Charles Conwell was successful and stopped Nathaniel Gallimore in the 6th round of their super welterweight fight. Conwell remains undefeated, 19-0 now. Handed the 8th defeat to Gallimore. And for Conwell, this was a good opponent, but more of a stay busy type fight. And continues his hunt to get a bigger name on his resume. Conwell is a well-known fighter within the 154-pound division, and fighters and camps know about him. And he's within a fight away from getting himself into a big-name fight. And hopefully by the end of the year, maybe even next year, he'll be landing a title shot in one of the divisions, for one of the division's titles. Conwell is definitely a big threat, big puncher. Good movement, good punch selection, and a big threat that's starting to amass at the 154-pound division. Amari Jones, who's out of the Devin Haney camp, Amari Jones also has a big following, and middleweight fighter, ended up fighting Armel Mbumba Yasa. If you remember that name, we covered that name as he ended up facing, he faced Ammo Williams, Austin Ammo Williams, earlier this year, and Ammo, of course, ended up getting the victory over Mbumba Yasa. Amari Jones, successful over Mbumba Yasa as well, stopped them in the 6th round and remains undefeated. There's a lot of hype behind Amari Jones. Big, tall, lanky, rangy, good pedigree fighter in Amari Jones. Puts his punches well together, has good pop behind him, and is able to find those openings and create those openings fairly easy up to this date. He's gonna be a big threat in the next few years, and he's definitely starting to pick up on these opponents. We just mentioned this opponent faced Ammo Williams, who is slightly ahead in his career to that of Amari Jones. And here's Amari Jones at 11-0, stepping into the ring, now getting his 12th victory, facing an opponent who has already faced stiffer opposition in the middleweight division. Amari Jones is definitely climbing up fairly quick and looking to make a statement in that division as well, a division that is basically non-existent right now with any big names. Triple G's out of the picture, and Andrade was probably the last remaining one there, along with Jamal. And both fighters, Andrade ended up going to 168. Jamal still non-existent since his last performance, which was a catchweight performance at that. So Amari Jones, Ammo Williams, Janibek, Lara, probably the oldest fighter and still a champ in that division. This is how that division's going to play out, and you got these new dogs that are coming in and making a name for themselves and establishing themselves within the rankings of 160 pounds. Darius Fulgham was successful in his fight yesterday. Darius Fulgham, who came off of let's just call it what it is. It was a boring, slow, frustrating fight to watch. The one that he had last January on the undercard of Jaime Munguia, John Ryder, out in Phoenix. Darius Fulgham fought Alantes Fox, a fight that promised action and was anything but. It was a sleeper of a fight where the crowd ended up booing. It was a crowd that was so hyped that day, so hyped throughout every single fight, and there was good fights through and through, and we ended up coming short on this fight where it basically just sucked the energy out of the arena with his fight against Alantes Fox. He ends up fighting Christian Olivas yesterday, successful, and comes away with the stoppage and makes a statement, which is what we needed to see from Darius Fulgham in January, and we need to see from him going forward. The young fighter, strong puncher, is a very promising act for Golden Boy, and here he is getting his 11th victory and stops Christian Olivas in the 4th round of their 8-round scheduled fight. So that was really good news for him. Then we move on. We stay in that division, and we also had Sergey Deverychenko, who was back in action. This was a stay busy fight for Deverychenko. He fought Von Alexander, who was 18-10 going into this. He's now got his 11th loss. Deverychenko ends up getting good rounds under his belt. Good work. Had been inactive since his fight against Jaime Munguia last year. In 2023, mid-23. He had not been active since. He now picks up another victory, gets the 15th victory of his career, and gets back hopefully in line for another big showdown at 168. Darius Fulgham, we just mentioned, was successful. He's a 168-pounder. And then we got Deverychenko, who is now successful, and he's a tough opponent for anybody. And Deverychenko is your type of fighter that, yes, he's getting on the older side, even though his record doesn't reflect that. He's 15-5, yet he's on the older side of the division. Remember, he was a big threat at 160 and is still a big threat at 168 and gives anybody a tough fight on any given night. He's the type of fighter that will fight down to his opposition's level. So he made it a long, lengthy, drawn-out fight against Von Alexander, who is a game fighter, but had no business with Deverychenko. Now, Deverychenko fighting a top name, like a Charlo, like a Munguia, like a Golovkin, he would step up. He steps up to the challenge. He fights to the level of the opposition and answers a call each time out. Yesterday, he got rounds under his belt, continues on his winning ways, or returns to his winning ways. 15-5, Deverychenko gets the unanimous decision. And at 168, hopefully he lands a big fight. I would love to see him against David Morrell, or maybe even against Darius Fulgham. He would be a really tough test for the young fighter. But one fight that I would really like to see with him between Deverychenko and another opponent is another 168-pounder that was on this undercard, and that was the Bully. Bektamir Melikuziev. Beck was on hand. He ended up fighting an undefeated French fighter, Pierre Dibombe, and this was a tough, scrappy fight for both of them. One that Dibombe has a lot of heart, fights with a lot of heart and a good chin, good lasting power, decent punching power on his end, but more so than anything was the spirit that he fights with, to the refusal to go out. Beck seemed like he had him on the way out several times, especially around the 4th, 5th round, and then continued on, and he was getting the best of him. Of course, Dibombe was doing good work as well, but very little compared to what Beck was pulling together. Tough fight for both of them nonetheless. There was a lot of blood, especially Dibombe, who was cut earlier in the fight. There was a headbutt that ends up causing a big laceration on the left eyelid, if I remember correctly, of Beck, which come the 8th round, the ref sends the fighters to the corners, to their respective corners, and gets the doctors to come up on the apron and check each of them out. And they do so, and Beck's cut was so bad on his eyelid that the doctor ends up waving the fight off. To the doctor's discretion, the fight gets called off by the ref. The fight gets sent to the scorecards, and Beck walks away with a unanimous technical decision win, handing Dibombe the first defeat of his career. I think Beck would have stopped Dibombe in the last couple rounds of this 10-round scheduled fight, but the fight gets waived at the start of the 8th round. Beck improves to 14-1, and Dibombe gets the first defeat of his record. And then we move on to the big main event, the reason why people showed up to the arena, the drama that ensued from the buildup. Remember, we go back to Virgil Ortiz opening this year, and where Bill Haney was on hand in Las Vegas. And that was the big coming out party for Golden Boy, announcing that they were establishing their Golden Boy business, their Golden Boy promotion in Las Vegas. They were setting foot in Las Vegas and going to start operating out of Las Vegas. There was a lot of stars on hand, a lot of fighters on hand, witnessing the return of Virgil Ortiz. Bill Haney was there basically to negotiate a fight between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. After the Duarte Garcia meltdown between Garcia and Golden Boy, between Garcia, Bernard Hopkins, the back and forth between Garcia and Oscar De La Hoya, he ends up doing that famous midnight run or 3 a.m. run with Floyd Mayweather Jr. And all of a sudden doesn't want anything to do with Devin Haney, throws a curveball at Golden Boy and tells him to start negotiating a fight with Rolly. The fight with Rolly was hard to negotiate with, according to Golden Boy, and they were unable to come to terms with PBC and Rolly Romero. Rolly Romero got added to the PBC opening card with Amazon Prime, and those negotiations fell through. Ryan Garcia gives the orders to De La Hoya, and he's like, screw Rolly Romero, this is too hard of a negotiation, let's go back to Devin Haney. That night, at ringside on the Virgil Ortiz card, Bernard Hopkins and Bill Haney got into a back and forth, which ended up causing some pushing and shoving and some exchanges of words. Bernard Hopkins telling Bill Haney to meet him in the bathroom. And so that drama started there. Then we lead to a few weeks later, and the fight ends up getting announced. It seemed like the fight was going to be off because they couldn't come to terms. They couldn't get along. And then the big announcement comes that Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney are going to fight. They end up having a run-in with one another at during the Super Bowl weekend celebration, where they end up pushing and shoving and swinging at one another, and the camps end up going at it. And then the craziness continues. Ryan Garcia, when this fight got announced, the back and forth that the fight's going to take place in Vegas and New York, and the uncertainty behind that. Then we get to the back and forth and the war of words via social media, via X, via Instagram, interviews taking place, and they're just taking shots at one another. The promotion is at an all-time high, and tickets begin to sell at a rapid rate. And then Ryan Garcia begins with this cryptic messaging on social media where it started deterring, to say the least, it started deterring fans from showing up, from purchasing tickets. Some became concerned. Some people asking the commission via social media to cancel this fight. Fighters themselves doing the same. They're like, you guys are going to have blood on your hands. Fighters that were very vocal about this, they're like, you guys are seeing the signs and not doing anything about it. Because Ryan Garcia went from at one point making claims as to pedophilia, making claims as to having been a victim of sexual predatory acts, having lost his wallet at one point, being in danger, then drinking and smoking out, and just this whole thing that it just became such a wild ride that people started getting deterred a little bit from the fight, not knowing that it was going to happen. So we get close. Arnold Barboza, who was the co-main event, who in my opinion ended up losing a fight with Sean McComb, Irish fighter. He lost this fight. He should have lost this fight, ended up getting the decision win. He was the co-main event. Arnold Barboza was asking to be moved into the main slot. Shakur Stevenson saying he needed to be moved into the main slot. Exit Ryan Garcia, let him recover, mentally recover, get himself right. Shakur was willing to step in. Arnold Barboza, who was already part of the card, was willing to step in and was basically probably had the nod or the whisper in his ear that he was going to step in if something happened to Ryan Garcia and it happened to fall through. Nonetheless, he was scheduled to fight a Sean McComb, who was supposed to be an easy, stay busy fight against a lesser-known fighter, an up-and-coming lesser-known fighter. And he ends up having the toughest fight of his career, looking bad, looking horrible, looking off, could not figure out Sean McComb's length, could not figure out Sean McComb's reach, his punch power. He was getting popped every time he tried to go in and kept at bay and didn't do anything about it. Never figured out the puzzle that was Sean McComb for him. Never made it a dirty, scrappy fight to turn momentum to his side. And even though he claims that he likes to engage, he didn't do it with this fighter, which, credit to McComb, obviously he had pop behind his punch because he kept Barboza at bay. Barboza lost this fight, yet ends up getting the nod. And you go into the main event of Haney Garcia with an ugly taste in your mouth of what the hell has this all been about? We get to the fight, we get to the post-conference late in the week, then we get to the weigh-ins. Remember earlier in the week, Haney slaps Garcia when they're doing a post-op or like a media op, and they're on one of the high rises out of New York. Then the weigh-in happens. Garcia in the post-conference ends up betting $500,000 for every pound that he would miss, guaranteeing that he would make weight. We get to the weigh-in and he misses weight by 3 pounds. Later on in the night, Friday night, Devin Haney confirms that Ryan Garcia was a man of his word and paid up $1.5 million for the 3 pounds that he missed. He could no longer become champion should he be victorious on Saturday nights. The title would be for Haney to retain or lose. Haney made weight like a professional. Ryan didn't. Proceeds by drinking what seemed like a beer bottle or some liquid out of a beer bottle, which the easy thing to think is he's drinking beer on top of the scale as he's on top of the scale. But it was an open bottle. I mean, likeliness that it was possibly water or juice or something, and just give the impression that he was drinking, that he was that much of a loose cannon. And that seems to be what happened last night. The fight itself takes place and the fight itself delivered. The overall card with the numerous fights, 10 fights leading to this one, especially after the co-main event, was leaving a tough taste in fans' mouth. For the viewers at home, it was entertaining at times, but more so than anything, the energy was out of the arena. People were just tuning in to see what kind of debacle we were going to see in the main event. And the fight ends up becoming possibly a sure shot candidate for fight of the year. An amazing showing between these two fighters, which goes to show that Ryan Garcia, and to put it neatly, is a mastermind at playing mind games and has definitely taken a page out of Floyd Mayweather's book. Even Bernard Hopkins, for that matter, who used to do the same. Ryan Garcia, who was not concentrated in his camp, or at least that was a perception, who was not fully focused on this fight, who had outside distractions, especially in the lead up to this fight, missed weight. You could tell that Ryan Garcia was definitely conserving energy during the fight, as he didn't fully box and fully engage and hunt after Devin Haney, but chose to effect a game plan of attacking in spurts and countering in spurts. Devin Haney had his game plan, and he basically was going to approach this just like he did with Regis and pick them apart. And that's what we were looking at. Right off the bat, first round, Ryan Garcia throws his famous left hook, which we all knew was going to happen. Remember, this is the 7th fight between these two, dating back to their days as amateurs. 6 fights between the two where they had split 3-3. This was Game 7, as everybody was calling it in the media. Game 7. Ryan Garcia was there to prove a point. They didn't care about the title. They didn't care about anything else. Just wanted to prove a point that he was better than Devin Haney. And Devin Haney was there to prove a point that he was going to punish Ryan Garcia for all the antics, for all the distractions, for not being professional. Devin Haney was going to cement himself as the top dog in boxing. Ryan Garcia changed those plans immediately. Devin Haney's game plan was affected from the very opening bell. They engage in the center of the ring, just like Devin was pleading for Ryan to step in the center of the ring. Ryan obliged, landed that sneaky left hook, that quick piston-like fast left hook that he delivers, landed on the temple, shook Devin Haney. Where Devin Haney was, his legs were gone from under him. And everything changed from there. Garcia takes the first round, and this is how I scored it. Garcia ended up taking round 1, round 4, round 6, round 10, 11, and I even gave round 12, the closing round, to Devin Haney. Haney ended up walking away with round 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, and 12. In the end, I had a 113-111 fight for Ryan Garcia. The knockdown that happened in round 7, a debacle of a round because the ref warning them about holding, not doing anything about holding, this back and forth that was taking place. Harvey Dock didn't do anything about it. Instead, there's a quick separation that he tries to do between a clinch where Devin Haney's grabbing for dear life. He had been dropped. He's grabbing onto Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia pops him amidst the break. Harvey Dock deducts a point from Ryan Garcia. That round, rather than being a 10-8 round for Garcia, ended up being a 9-8 because he lost that point, but happened to drop Devin Haney in that round. He shook him in the first round, shook him later on in the middle rounds, and then drops him in the 7th. And this is when things started looking bad. Haney continued to get back to work, and this was the problem throughout the night, that Ryan Garcia was letting him off the hook. He wasn't capitalizing on it. The second time that he hurt him, he manages to drop Devin Haney for the first time in Devin Haney's perfect career. He hit the canvas. He had been shaken by Jorge Linares. He had been shaken by Jojo Diaz. He got slightly shook by Lomachenko, but nothing major. And now he got shook, and his chin held. And come the 7th round, he gets dropped and tastes the canvas. He gets up, answers the count, and in my opinion, he took round 8 and round 9 successive rounds just by sticking and moving and landing his jab. Now, should there have been points deducted from Devin Haney for the amount of holding that he did? Yes. There was too many warnings and nothing done about it, except the one time that he deducts a point from Ryan Garcia, and there was no warning behind it. It was just an immediate reaction to a punch that Garcia threw. Was it warranted? Sure. But there should have been points deducted from Devin Haney for the amount of holding that he did throughout the fight. One thing is strategic punch and hold, just to be able to get out of the angle. Strategic clinching, because you're about to go down. But grabbing the entire night, whether you were connecting or not, successfully or unsuccessfully, just grabbing for the sake of it, made it a crazy, frustrating fight to watch at times if it wasn't for the amount of action that we witnessed when they weren't holding. Ryan Garcia conserved his energy so much that he ended up unleashing in spurts. And whenever he unleashed in spurts, it just seemed like he was a monster. Like his energy, his strength could not be matched by Devin Haney. He would just walk him back and hurt him. Yet he wasn't doing that. He was conserving his energy and would fight in spurts, which a well-conditioned Ryan Garcia would have eliminated Devin Haney, in my opinion, a lot earlier than having gone all the way. because the strength definitely favors and the punching power definitely favors Ryan Garcia. Round 10 happens, Haney goes down. Round 11 happens, Haney goes down. 3 times he touches the canvas. Round 12, he just basically stayed away. He felt like he had conquered a fight, and you were getting nervous because you're almost feeling like, don't do this. We saw this happen before. You think you're in the lead, and the judges may have it a completely different way, and he is the champ. Few punches exchanged in between each other. Devin Haney actually did a little bit more, in my opinion, in the 12th round. Impressive that he continued to answer the count and get back on his feet and fight through adversity and continue to just take the fight to Garcia and try to affect his jab. But it was too little too late. He abandoned his jab when it was working. He shook Ryan Garcia early in the fight, where Ryan Garcia clenched his jaw and punched and touched his gloves together, tapping his gloves together as he got hurt. And he was like, all right, bring it on. Let's get into this, because he got hurt. Ryan Garcia's nose started getting popped early in the fight, and his face, his mouth, his nose was reddened from that quick jab that Haney effects and is so good at. And he got away from it because he was hesitant. Now he was fighting a flinch type of fight, a hesitant, anxious type of fight, not knowing when the left hook was going to be unleashed, when the left missile was going to come down range, and he didn't know how to time it. He didn't have anything for it. And he was already hurt. And that changed the entire game plan of Devin Haney. 113, 111 is how I ended up calling it. Ryan Garcia. The judges ended up issuing a tie by Max DeLuca, 112 apiece. 114, 110 by Eric Marlinsky, Ryan Garcia's favor. And Robin Taylor, 115, 109 to Ryan Garcia's favor. That's what gave Ryan Garcia the victory. Split decision, or majority decision, I should say. And Ryan Garcia not only continues his winning ways, improves his record, and hands the first defeat to Devin Haney's unblemished record leading into that fight. 25-1 for Ryan Garcia. Haney 31-1 now, and loses the WBC title at 140-pound divisions, which this title is going to be vacant, and we'll see who's next. Now, post-fight, we started seeing that Ryan Garcia is more than likely going to move up to welterweight. Even mentioned Sebastian Fundora at 154. I mean, Ryan Garcia just says some outlandish stuff, and you just got to take it for what it is. How can you question him after he performs like this, and subpar perform, because he conserved his energy very well. Obviously, he makes comment about it as well post-fight, that he was conserving his energy and his stamina and fought in spurts. And even then, he bested and hurt the champ, Devin Haney, former undisputed at 135, current WBC champ, and drops and beats him. Devin Haney his game plan completely derailed because of the power. And he no longer wanted to expose himself and fight as fluid and as loose as he normally fights, because the danger was there and the danger was real. And the damage that he could inflict on Ryan Garcia would come by accumulation, as he is known to do, because he doesn't possess that stopping punching power, whereas Ryan Garcia does. And that ended up changing the entire game plan. He went from plan A and plan B getting derailed to wing it. Mike Tyson's quote was there. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I'm probably murdering that because it's not verbatim, but it's basically the message is that. The phrase that we all know. The message that we all know. Ryan Garcia, successful, will move on from what he said, either remain at 140, maybe go after Pitbull or Teofimo if he makes weight. But he admittedly said that he has a hard time making 140, and he's made 143 comfortably and was looking to go up to 147. Devin Haney, he's just going to be big money fights from here on out. Whether he gets a title or not, who cares? He's just going to be in big money fights, is what I'm gathering from this. Big face for boxing, for a sport of boxing. And a money fight for anybody that steps in the ring with him. For Devin Haney, we'll see if he remains at 140. He asked for a rematch. Ryan Garcia said, sure, we'll run it back. Later on, he recanted and said, no, there's no need for a rematch. I agree, there's no need for a rematch. But if they do, you know for a fact that it's going to be a huge sellout. A huge sellout. Because this one, with all the controversy, like I said, had a lot of deterrence to it and affected the ticket sales and the viewership. But you know that after the way that this fight played out and it delivered on all accounts, on all fronts, for sure shot candidate as a fight of the year. A rematch would be even bigger, not just bigger purses for them, but it would be a sure shot sellout. Especially if they do it at the later part of this year. Because everybody's going to ignore the BS on social media and know that these two fighters are going to deliver when they step into the ring. And to see if Devin Haney adjusts and affects a different game plan against Ryan Garcia, protecting himself from that piston of a left hook. Whereas if Ryan Garcia has an awesome, perfectly strategized camp and shows up with a full stamina level, full stamina bar come fight night, he will take the fight to Devin Haney rather than fighting in spurts and sporadic and countering such as he did, where he found so much success, which got him the victory. Imagine if Ryan Garcia was going forward the entire time and taking the fight to him. On a well-conditioned Ryan Garcia come fight night. The intrigue is there. And we'll see what comes with these two fighters. Devin Haney, one of my favorite fighters to date, and you guys could go back and check my catalog, The Dream. I've been a big fan of his and continue to be. And I love the way that people will argue about he has no chin. To me, he has a weak chin, not suspect, but a weak chin, but very good stamina and a lot of heart to be able to continue to answer the count after he's hurt, after he's wobbly. If he had a weak chin or no chin, he would have been knocked out after the damage that he suffered yesterday. But he continued to get up and he continued to win rounds. So yes, he has a weak chin, but he has a lot of heart. And we'll have to see how he looks in his bounce back fight, in his next fight. Whether it's a tune-up, stay busy fight or another big name draw. For Ryan Garcia, money fight, money fight, money fight. All in all, the fight delivered. Exciting. It's what boxing needed. And after all this drama this entire year for 4 months between these two fighters, and I'm not even going further back, just 4 months of allegations, accusations, back and forth, disdain, hate, name calling, fights, slaps, pushes, shoves. They delivered. This is what boxing needed. And it basically cleared up everything else before this. And it put boxing on a pedestal once again. It's exactly what the sport of boxing needed. Such a big fight with two big draws delivering rather than another dud. When two big names get together in the ring, this fight delivered. It had drama, it had excitement, it had people on their feet, and you could visibly see it. People on their feet from the 4th round on. Some stayed on their feet from the 1st round on and just watched it on their feet, which sucked for the people that were sitting behind them because they were being blocked the entire time. But that's how excited people were. So, awesome display by both. I'll leave you guys with this. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Sorry that it took a few days to get another episode out, but nonetheless, I love you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for the support. I'm going to continue bringing more content to you. And let's see if we could continue to get press access to some of these upcoming events this year, whether they be somewhat local or I have to travel somewhere. Let's see if I could get some more access and bring you guys some more cool coverage from on or about, whether they're weigh-ins or fight coverage or what have you. We'll continue growing the show, and I owe it all to you. You guys continue to tune in. I'll continue to sit on this end of the mic and bring you as much content as I can, hopefully quality content, if you deem it so. And let's see what big events we could get ourselves invited to and be part of. So I'll leave you guys with that. Have yourselves a great night, and I'll catch you guys all on the next episode. Take care.